let's go to the next session. We have SDG4 Quality Education Through Effective Visual Communication by Mr. Tommaso Maggio. He is a lecturer in visual communication, Birmingham City University. He's an artist, designer, and PhD researcher on experimental arts design education methods. He has 20 years of professional experience managing, coordinating, and implementing multicultural practice-based research projects, including intervention focusing on early childhood and lifelong education. His extensive experience in the education and research sector has given him a deep understanding of the impact that digital learning activities, including in early childhood education, have on promoting children and their family's social, developmental, and emotional well being. For example, during the COVID-19 global pandemic, he developed a series of instructional art and design videos for children between 3 and 6. This enabled him to learn how to best apply this form of teaching to relieve psychosocial distress and stimulate creativity. As a childhood arts education associate for an international school during the COVID-19 lockdown, he integrated digital learning in the course structure and researched data and information on how best to integrate educational resources to promote positive parenting practices amongst the most vulnerable communities. This effort also included developing learning materials that facilitate access to remote learning for children with disabilities. Thank you so much, Mr. Tommaso Maggio, for joining us today. Over to you for your session.
Oh, thank you very much for letting me be your guest here today.
Perfect.
Once again, thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure to be part of this revolution, as somebody called early on. So the topics you already explained is quality education through effective visual communication research. So you already did a great introduction about who I am, so I don't need to spend more time on it. Thank you again. All right. But when we talk about visual communication, I just wrote down a couple of lines. So just to be clear, is a process, at least in this context, to make visible and to convey a specific message through a series of medium. So that can be spatial design, screen-based design, or traditional print, or any digital media, as the screen you are looking at this moment. So when we are talking about visual communication, of course, we are talking somehow about culture, right? So one thing that pop up that is relevant is to consider, for instance, the different point of view that we have at large between East and West. So I found this difference pretty interesting in my research. So while in the West, we consider what is original, something that is totally new, nobody's seen before. In East society, that we call even where the collectivism have been present. So it's more the idea of developing something or moving something. They become original because it has been done in the specific context. Doesn't mean that can be done before, but showing a specific context change the connotation of it and perhaps the value. So these 2 points of view are quite relevant when we talk about visual communication, because nowadays we are bombarded about visuals, right? But we need to consider always the context we design for, we design with. So everything we see around us, print, photography, film, are all part of our visual culture. So again, when we say about culture, is my culture, your culture the same? For instance, where we live, bring us with a certain point of view. When we travel, we try to see other point of view. This is important. The speaker before started to talk about the relevance of perception. So perception is not just something intangible, it's something that we have through our own body. No, there is some physicality on the perception. So I encountered these two words. There is proprioception. and interoception. So what is outside in, like the senses, right? And inside up, the temperature. For now, for instance, this moment, my temperature is quite high because there is a presentation. So it's not a normal situation. So my body felt quite different. So that's something that when we are aware, maybe we can even relax or try to keep a bit control or be at least aware what we are doing. That, of course, has to do with education. We know, of course, education is the key to move forward, to move the mass, to expand, because through the knowledge, you can move out of poverty and from many complex situations. So, but one important things that we may agree that education in general tells us about of everything, but at least a few decades ago, we learn little about ourselves. What does mean this? So think about again perception. I think about when we study about the rest. Think about your perception. Perception we can be something like the senses, a temperature, something that's hard to perceive, to touch, but even color, because we talk about visual culture. Color is something that now are present. But for instance, if I turn off my light, so you will not be able to see me. But perhaps the room will be black and no color will be present. But when we are dreaming, if you close your eyes, you can keep seeing colors. It's quite magic, let's say. But this keep is something that is interesting because keep us alive. And then we have to take it under consideration, and even especially when we talk about education. So now I want to do a little exercise with you all. So we are running very fast in all those presentation, maybe some even stress out, many things to do at the same time. So I ask you to few seconds. So try to dream and just close your eyes. I know it's a bit unusual, but nothing strange will happen to you. So close your eyes. All right. Now, so if you can keep your eyes closed, try to think in as much possible way a pink cow. Yes, a pink cow. So, what pink is your cow? And what she's doing? Is near you? Is in a dreamy landscape? Is she eating something? Try to observe all the detail. Okay? So now, open a moment your eyes. Keep all this detail in your mind and close again your eyes. And this time, think about a yellow cow. Okay? Are you thinking about a yellow cow? Good. All right, you can open again your eyes. So now, tell me, what is the difference between the two cows, the pink one and the yellow one? Maybe in this moment it's quite hard to let everybody talk, but you can write your answer in the chat, and then we can have a conversation about this. So just to report what the majority of people usually respond to me when I ask this question. So it would be interesting to know that just less than 10% of people answer that the main difference is the color. Many, and people from different age, from adult to kids, respond with all the detail about this dreamy fairy tale. I did even the same experiment last week with 12 years old kids. In a group of 20 kids, online session, only 2 reply the color. The rest start telling me the story. And I did a workshop with a university in UK a week ago. And that case, no one, not a single person, and age was 50 up to 65, let's say. So nobody in the room mentioned that the main difference was the color. That is just to keep us in mind that first, when we think about color, we always have the different perception. For instance, when I ask those people to show me which pink they have in mind, with my pink was always something different. Again, we talk about visual communication in education. That's quite relevant to think, because you need to think about others when if you want to educate. So, and empathize with others is one of the key words. So just to move forward, the same aspect. So that if we close your eyes, with our eyes, we can keep dreaming in colors. That is strange but fascinating somehow. We can even consider that the cube is knowledge. And why we can say that? So nowadays, we can see just one face of a cube, and our mind can rebuild somehow, again, in our mind, the rest of the element. So somehow we embed this knowledge to ourselves. So the perception is already part of our knowledge. What this has to do with design, because visual culture, of course, has to do with the design. And design, this large umbrella, I consider that as collected group of experience, right? That bring the materiality and the collect body of experience that help understanding the embodiment of arts, planning, inventing, making, and doing. So from one of my experiments, this is the result, that what I understand by producing a fashion collection. So you see here is a very quick chart. So it shows that whatever you create a product, the physicality of product has always 2 values. One is the imaginarium of the collectiveness, another is the preconception. In the case of fashion things, think about when I show something in Europe done with fabric from Southeast Asia. So in Europe, they have this dream, maybe for example, dream or memory when they went here on holiday. When I showed to people living here, for them was a sort of imaginary or preconception because they have the idea from their childhood. It is extremely fascinating how each object, the physicality, brings something ephemeral, like the spiritual essence of any object. Reality, my reality, your reality, is something that we have to consider. When we talk about education, we talk about visual culture, and reality is what we perceive under specific culture, right? A specific lens. The lens we develop are done by where we live, where we grow up, where we're moving, the people we are exposed with. That's very relevant. For that, I started to do this project actually in those weeks with my students that are now based in Wuhan, China. So I asked them to do a very simple exercise in this digital era, and we talk all the time about digital media, of course. I asked them to select one object, a physical object that is with them and their family since at least 2 generations. So what they bring back, some was banknote. As you know, most people in China nowadays use just mobile phone to make payment. Some others bring me back military chess. Other, the ruler from the 70s. And then from this point, I asked them to start mapping how was the society when the family bought or they acquire those products into the family. So, and they start to understand better the context. So, for instance, this is another way, instead of just studying books, they, of course, they're done, but this is another way of learning from our research they can do that can expand from visual culture because they can see photo from the 70s, from the 80s, and early on poster, so they can learn about typography and how typography was influenced by the society at large, arts. And for instance, they say about the 80s, a big influence from Western and to China, and that changed their way of living to perceive Western world. Oops. But sometimes, again, digitalize is not enough. I assume that body movement is something that's very relevant and help to understand better where we are. So through body movement and time, emotion are translated into tangible and intangible elements, which helps in each student self-reflection and engage in collective awareness. So this action fosters the physicality of knowledge as a set of automatisms incorporate into the body. So think about the pianist. When he plays the piano, he is the piano. And that's the knowledge that we need to understand and to share in the way that our student pupil, they make the knowledge part of themselves. And they bring to concept of research something more tangible when I ask students from product design, so product design in terms of furniture, very sometimes heavier, tangible things, into something more ephemeral. So I ask them, fourth-year student, ready to do the thesis, to shift their mindset from product designer to theater performer. So, of course, the first reaction was, wow, that is too much as a jump. It's like jumping to the darkness. So I work on their feeling, we work together, and through the first reaction of this, oh my God, I don't know what to do, like being lost, they develop a series of room, like sort of dark room where people can work, physically work in, and have the same similar feeling of being lost and be aware of moving around only by touching and find a little rope. And I developed some other system with my student, a system to create collectiveness, to understand how we need to empathize with others with this, let's say, old school machine that help them to find equilibrium. But to find it, you need to work in team through your own body. again, is between honest understanding you and living the present. And to this, find a way to develop. This is an exercise that I did with students in China 3 years ago. I asked them to find a chapter in a random book in the library and take a photo according with the feeling they have. And that was the result. And again, another result and it was a sort of self-reflection. What they learn about the self, understanding who you are is more important because only by understanding who you are, we can be the force for our society. Lifelong learning, something that I encounter and I do all the time, as is very relevant, rooted in integration of learning and living. UNESCO's understand and put this delivery and undertaken through a variety of modality and meeting a wide range of learning needs and demands. So lifelong learning as a priority issue for United Nations. I did more experiment where mindfulness and meditative awareness was bringing to the classroom. This time again was out of the education, let's say, worlds because this was out of university. So this was done in a sort of dojo in a meditation center. So I bring my experience as an artist and through session of meditation, working meditation, I ask people to draw directly after meditating. And the result was those people, if you notice on this side, this is not a hand, but it's the foot. So I ask them to different posture to express freely themselves. And they told me after that, they can find their long lost childhood. And they were pretty happy and some really acting as child first day of school. Educating people to the value of visual education is even what I did with Untitled Chamber of Commerce. So do it through webinar, educating the value of the logo and visual identity as business and as your identity, as your face, the face people see when you're doing your own business. This, for instance, is a fantastic result of somebody who did one of my classes with an international school. He kept this his passion for drawing aside until he enrolled in this class and he started to develop his table game. So, given opportunity those people never had before was extremely important as relief, especially because this was done during the COVID. And this the experiment that was mentioned before of nowness through meditation and freely drawing with a partnership with several universities, University of Essex, Queen Margaret, St Andrews, and Cardiff Metropolitan University. So all practitioners, because again, we talk in this session that education is important and we ask to find a better way to improve, to enhance what students can understand and learn it the fast or their own pace. But somehow we agree that we really need a break as educator and students. So mindfulness and meditation through even arts can help to find this space. And then I extend my research into finding or proposing solution for positive parenting. Positive parenting and care practices encompass health, nutrition, early learning, security and safety, and responsive caregiving. Creating positive parent-child interaction help increase bonding between parents and other caregivers, and children. All factors that help prevent violence against children. And we know all are aware of how important it is. How many cases we read those days, years of COVID, of violence, home violence. So during the COVID first wave, I developed with my daughter, at the time 1 year old, this book. And then I published first on the web with Amazon, and then a special edition for Southeast Asia and Thailand with the Thai Italian Chamber of Commerce. This was basically a starting point to develop more activity with kids online and offline. And I was being asked to create even a series of video where with family around the globe, and that's start sort of game. And then people increased to participate and send me back the sort of homework. And that was, they say, a way to distress from the COVID situation. So engage with your daughter and son. So, and that is another exercise that I did with more and more kids. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tommaso. Thank you. That was amazing. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks to you.
Thank you so much.